Welcome to this week's Master Coaches Weekly Buzz hosted by John Foreman. We continue to update our viewers on the most current issues and trends during our conversation with leaders in our sport. Today, we are pleased to recognize 3 Hall of Famers. Brian Gemolero, former head coach at Long Beach State, winning 3 NCAA championships, along with NCAA Division I Final Four appearance, Bob Bertucci, who is currently head men's coach at Sacred Heart University, and Mick Haley, former USC head coach with 3 NCAA championships, all of which will be asking our guests the tough questions on Pac-12 volleyball and what does the future look like for volleyball at the collegiate level. First, let's go to former Olympic coach Mick Haley, who will introduce our guests today.
Well, thank you, Ruth. It's really a pleasure to introduce both Kevin and Beth. I'll start with Kevin, the returning national championship coach, actually 2 in a row at this point. Kevin had 272 wins and 95 losses in his career. It's kind of interesting, Kevin. I thought when I looked at those numbers, you can't be that young, but you are, and that's pretty fun and pretty good. You got 2 national titles in a row. You were 94-9 in your 3 years at Stanford, 30-4 overall last year. And I'm sure you were thinking about a repeat this year. Beth, I kind of looked up your numbers a little bit. 31 years in coaching at Utah. I don't know what Russ has got at Penn State, but I know you're chasing him pretty good here, and that's great. Pac-12 Coach of the Year last year. Congratulations, which is really important since Kevin won the national championship and the coaches vote you Coach of the Year. That's quite an honor and very special, I'm sure. You had one of your most successful seasons ever, 24-10, and I loved watching your team compete. Boy, they competed every point, all the way into the Sweet 16 and the NCAA tournament. So we're welcoming both of you on our show, and thank you very much for coming.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us. Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to start very quickly because we're short on time. I have a question I would like to ask. Both of you have coached both in the Pac-10, Pac-12, and the Big Ten. There are some extreme differences in those conferences. Location of the cities, the Midwest versus the West Coast and mountain areas, the size of the cities, the attendance drawn for the matches, recruiting locations, those kinds of things are pretty unique. My question is, why do you guys think the Big Ten and the Pac-12 decided to put fall sports on hold and the 3 other Power 5 conferences have not? And if I can add a second part of that, could you see someone like Nebraska bolting the Big Ten and jumping into the Big 12, for instance, so they could play both football and volleyball this fall and doing something crazy like that? Kevin, can we start with you, the reigning national championship coach?
That feels like a long time ago. I think the Big Ten, the Pac-12, I think the reason that we left is because we have the student athletes' best interest in mind, and it makes sense to us. I think all of us as coaches, as we were in our calls, I don't want to speak for other coaches, but I know I'm sure have asked ourselves, what are we doing? Why are we trying to push this? And what's happening here? And so it made a lot of sense for us to get, in my opinion, to get out. On the Nebraska question, well, first off, I hear the Big East and the Big South are going to be done today, and so we'll be under 50%. So we'll see as far as the ability to host a championship. So we'll see if the teams in the Big 12 and the SEC and the ACC continue to have a season. To see Nebraska leaving to play football in the Big 12, I think that would be financially really irresponsible because of how much money comes in from TV contracts in the Big Ten, and it doesn't make sense to me that they'd want to bolt.
That's $43 million, right?
Yeah, last time I heard it was in the 50s, so
per school.
That direction. Yeah.
That's really good. Beth, how do you respond to that?
Completely agree with Kevin in that number one by far is the health of the student athletes, and we have had amazing medical advisory teams advising our presidents and our administrators, and it just came down to a simple fact. I mean, there was a line drawn in the sand, and on top of that, I do believe that the student athletes really want a significant season. And I think it was becoming more and more difficult for them to, see a path to a season, a full season, however many matches and a championship, and understanding that the NCAA numbers now for volleyball have dropped below 50%. Seems, we've heard that they won't maybe hold an NCAA championship. So the players want, full experience. And so, both Kevin and I have been very supportive of the Pac-12 in this decision for numerous reasons.
You must be going through a wonderful last 24 hours, both of you. I can't imagine what's going on. First, Kevin, congratulations on the national championship. Enjoy it. Enjoy it while it's still there. And then Beth, another great season. And starting with you, what's going on? What are they telling you about practice? What are they telling you about traditional practice season, non-traditional? What are you doing with your players?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I've kind of joked in 30 years, I've never said, I don't know so many times. But, things never cease to amaze me. And we've been told that we actually can proceed with practice preseason as in season. We're actually going to probably just do it as voluntary. In Utah, we've actually been on campus, and our players have been in voluntary training for 2 months. And I know, it's hard for my Pac-12 peers to hear that because they're just getting back. But we're going to give our players a break and let them, we'll train them if they want to come in. And there's certainly some kids that want to do that for sure, but some kids want a little bit of a break. So I think, I can't speak for Kevin, but I do feel like there's a little bit of sense of relief that there's at least a decision made for now. I think our players just wanted to know something. And so we had a Zoom call within 30 minutes of the decision. Our athletic director came on, talked to the team. And then since then, we've just been in contact with each individual about, hey, what's your plans for the next 10 days? We'll regroup once school starts. That's what we're doing. I think it's a little different for Kevin.
And Kevin, what are you telling your players and do they have any idea of how many practices they're going to allow if you guys step back in December or January?
Yeah, I mean, right now everything's up in the air. I don't think anyone knows anything, but we are going to continue. We haven't started practice yet because we're going to our kind of resocialization phase and trying to get through all of our testing. We just got in a hotel on Sunday, so we're going to actually still train. They're telling us we can still train it's like we're training like a preseason where we don't really have to worry about the 20 hours for now. Not that we're going to come anywhere close to that. These guys have not done anything. So we'll kind of we're looking at 5 blocks of 3 days in a row of training, and we'll work on that. But after that time, that'll end September 4th. Then our university is going to decide what's happening, whether or not we're going to have students on campus around that time. And once that's up, we'll know more. But until then, we don't really know what the future holds. We just know kind of what we're doing from now till September 4th. And like Beth, it's really hard to look at your players who are completely stressed out and just kind of freaking out about their future and what, volleyball, school, and more importantly, just being around each other and their other friends on campus and just saying, I don't know what the future holds. It's a hard place to be as a coach and very unique. I just have never been in a situation like this before. Obviously, no one has.
To answer just a little bit more, Brian, I think it's up in the air. I do believe we'll be practicing once our academic schools begin, which starts August 24th. But what does that look like? I think that's the big question mark. Are we going to go into an 8-hour period? Are we going to go into 20-hour, week periods? I know we have a coaches call later this afternoon, and I do think that they're going to look for, coaches groups to give input. But if we are looking, for a spring season, which there, seems to be that they'll be a look-in date, then maybe, we need some 20 hours. Are we going to do 20 hours a week all fall? that remains to be seen. A lot of questions still.
Well, I can tell you that just going on that because it's so different where we are. California is obviously the most conservative probably state about all this stuff. And if we're not on campus, we're probably not training in the fall. Right now, even training how it would look, we're not even allowed to be inside. So like we're setting up sport courts on tennis courts, and we're only allowed to have 2 people touch a ball. So I don't even know what that looks like, on how we actually get any work done, and campus may not allow us to keep training. Sorry to keep on this topic, but I think it's interesting to see how different it is across the country. And this is one of the biggest issues in trying to have a season is Beth's rules, because of the state laws, are so different than our rules. And I guess we're all kind of happy that it's delayed, hoping that things kind of settle in and we get a vaccine so that we can move forward.
Well, you've got a heat wave coming too, don't you, Kevin?
It never gets that bad up here, to be honest. Yeah.
Well, you can just wish it on the Bruins and the Trojans.
That's right. Yeah.
Well, Beth, I just got finished on a Zoom call last night with my my men's team, and I asked them the question I'm going to ask you and Kevin right now. So it's interesting that you've been with your players. How do they feel about the virus in general, and are they concerned about getting sick?
Great question. I just to clarify, I actually haven't been with my players. It's been purely voluntary. And to be honest, it's been a little bit difficult in terms of, our strength coach and our trainer have been the ones that have been in contact with our athletes as it would be in a normal summer. So they've been in contact. All my contact's been through Zoom so far. But I will tell you that we definitely have players that are concerned. I don't think I think that there, there's definitely some just like the country, right? You're going to have players with different backgrounds coming, they're hearing different things from the university officials than they're maybe hearing at home, whether they believe in wearing masks or not, but they're also just bought into trying to play the sport that they love. And so, I think that they're doing a great job with following the rules and trying to be, doing everything they could to have a season. And, I feel strongly that they'll continue doing that. But I definitely think we had some players that were concerned. I don't know if the training and the practices were as concerning, because I do feel like we've created a little bit of bubble situation, with our volunteer work. A lot of testing, and they're moving forward with that. But in terms of travel, I think that was the big issue. I couldn't imagine being on the road for 4 days. 2 flights, 2 to 3 different hotel rooms. That was going to be overwhelming for not just myself, but my support staff, myself, my players. So I think there was definitely concerns for sure, and some relief about not having to put ourselves in that position.
And Kev, how do you feel about it? And let's go one step further. How about as coaches? How do you feel about getting back in the gym, and being exposed to all the players and where they've been?
Yeah, we have a really robust testing system here, and so I trust our athletes that they are going to be kind of following all the rules in the hotel, and they're all isolating themselves and all that. So being around the athletes, I feel safe. Like Beth said, I was much more worried about travel and what that means. And one of the more interesting questions that came up was just, especially when the Power Five was talking about continuing to play, and there was all those rumors about that. And then the NCAA is saying we're not safe and we shouldn't have a season. Now, there's all that talk. It didn't end up kind of playing out that way. But I had a couple athletes on a Zoom call just say, why do we think it's okay to play? And why do we think that we're going to be safe when the NCAA doesn't? And the answer was really about that testing and how much money we were able to put into testing and being able to assure that we're safe. But like I told them, there's no assurances once you got into travel. And so they were all really relieved once they found out we weren't traveling. And I think the main fear, there were less fear about getting sick to be honest. And they probably should have been more afraid of that. The thing that they were most afraid of was starting the season and then not ending it. And losing all their eligibility and missing out on an opportunity to play because there would be a spike due to travel or due to like contract chasing because of one of the teams got it and it just spread to other. One of the things they talked about the most. Mick, get checked. That sounds bad. I don't like to hear that cough.
Not on purpose. I'm sorry.
Okay, so now I guess it's my turn. I get to talk about one of the most important things for you guys now that you're all healthy and you got great testing and the money to put into your testing for your athletes. Recruiting. You know, to me, I think that I've never seen, and Mick can say the same thing, on all these years we've coached at the D1 level, there's never been a dead period this long. So it's almost like you have a calendar and 6 months are dead. Now, my question to you is, let's just say that the NCAA continues to have a few more months dead period. What do you see the value of having a dead period in your recruiting process? And Beth, I'll start with you first.
Oh, you guys are hitting on all the great topics.
Yeah, right.
and important ones. You know, one thing that's happened is that the Pac-12 coaches have been on a Zoom call every single week, and Kevin provided great leadership of setting those up about, I don't know, at least 2 months, maybe 3 months. So we've actually gotten really close, and we definitely said when we all can get together, we're throwing some back and going to laugh about this whole period of time. But you know, we've been, I think we've been the leader in terms of believing that we need to keep recruiting where it is right now. That moving forward out of a dead period doesn't make any sense for the safety of our athletes, for ourselves, again, for anyone that we would, you know, look to bring on campus. Yeah, again, it just comes down to travel, and it's a difficult decision. It really is. It's a difficult issue. You know, I've got kids in my backyard, you know, that I'm recruiting, and I can't have them come up and talk to them. So we're just doing as much as we can through Zoom, just like everybody else. I think it's been fairly productive in some ways. You know, we actually have a little more time. I feel like we've been able to communicate with them more and better. And, you know, we're just relying on technologies just like everybody else. But we've believed, early on, we believed that it needed to shut down for the safety and health of everybody. And we'll see where it goes. You know, I don't know what they're going to do. Kevin, maybe you can speak more on that, because again, it's just one of those things that it's just been month by month. And I'm not going to lie, I don't mind not traveling to convention, you know, to tournaments and sitting at convention centers for 3 days. Not minding that at all. But it's actually been some really quality recruiting. You know, it's been interesting in a different way.
Okay, Kevin, how about you? Hey, I bet you've never had as many face-to-face conversations with recruits add up all the years you've been coaching and put them into 2 months, right?
Yeah, I mean, it feels like we're having home visits because you're looking into their house a little bit and having conversations. You know, the parents are hiding off in the wings, like listening in on the conversation. But I agree with Beth. I think, you know, I feel like it stresses out the athletes, especially the potential student athletes that we're recruiting, because they all want to come to campus and they all want to see it and they want to meet the team. And that's who I feel for. But honestly, I think in some ways it's really helped us develop better relationships, because for, I don't know what, it's almost been 2 months that we've been able to have conversations with these athletes face to face like this, and really check in once a week and just get to know them. And typically what would happen is you have a couple conversations, they come on a visit, you spend that day, and then they're off to the next place and they're ready to commit. So I think slowing this down has allowed us to get to know these athletes better. The bummer is they don't know our athletes, and then they don't really know the campus, and they don't really know the culture. They're just hearing it through our lens. And so I think everyone's trying to figure out ways to kind of combat that, but it's just not the same. Even if you come up with your virtual tours or have them talk to the athletes and all that stuff, it's just not the same.
So what you would do is if an athlete, there's so many athletes out there that really don't know what they're thinking. They don't know what everybody's thinking. Would you say just enjoy the sport, play if your state allows you to play.
Yeah.
Give yourself a break during the fall. If you're in the 13 states that aren't playing high school volleyball, you know that club is wrapping up like crazy. Wouldn't you, what would be your advice just to say during this period of time to any athlete that's out there? It doesn't matter what sport they're in.
Yeah, I mean, be grateful you have your health and like try to stay healthy and do what you can and focus on what you can control. There's things you can't control, but this is a good thing for you in this process. The longer the process is in recruiting, the better it is for you because you're going to spend more time getting to know the people that you could potentially be playing for. And I think that's, that's why the rule changed when it did, that we started backing up recruiting where we couldn't have contact with them until 22, and just happens this is the first, or till that 22 class, until they're juniors, and this just happens to be the first class, and they are really going to have to take more time. And I just try to have them, when I talk to the athletes about it that feel stressed, like, no, this is a positive thing, and try to focus on that with them. Because
Beth, how about you?
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, I've been saying that to recruits for 30 years that, you really ought to enjoy this period of time, because the one period of time in your life where you're going to be told just a bunch of wonderful things about yourself. So really, it's just no different. I agree. I think there's an opportunity for us to really look at recruiting and look at the value of what's going on right now and see if there's a better way to do recruiting, which we probably could all agree that there probably is. And so even moving forward, I think there's going to be some things that we can take from this that are going to be positive for sure.
Wow. Kevin, I have to say congratulations too on your championship. And Beth, hooray for the women. I get to put that plug in. And Nick, I know
Bruce,
you've been chomping at the bit there.
I have. I don't mean to be a Debbie Downer, but I want to ask a question about potentially spring. I know you guys have had to think your way through this. So you've already suspected that there's possibly going to be a timeout on this fall, but a hope maybe that you might be able to run winter or spring. Now, there seems to be two problems with that. Football's talking about that. You also have anywhere from 7 to 11 other teams playing in the spring on your campus. Those people lost their spring sport last year. Those coaches are not really supportive of you guys taking part of their time in the spring. And so you have two problems. One, could you possibly get a spring championship going? And secondly, how do you work that out on campus with the teams that have already lost a semester or a season, who are feeling cheated themselves simply because of the situation?
Go ahead, Beth. I'll let you take on first. Yeah.
Good.
I love it, Kevin.
Kevin.
Ladies first.
I'd say, Mick, it's been, we've also been on Zooms every week with all of our peers within our athletic department. And I would say that we've become closer. And there's an amazing amount of support for each other. Our athletic director just asked, hey, spring coaches, please be available for the fall coaches. Fall coaches reach out to the spring coaches and talk to them about the issues that you faced last year or last spring. So I think, I think for sure the main issue is the ability for the NCAA to even run spring championships. They, as you know, Mick, there's, I think, over 60 spring championships that the NCAA runs. And for them to add another 22 fall championships, at least we're hearing that that's a big challenge that they would need to overcome. I also think we need to figure out, what's happening with the teams that go this fall. If teams go this fall, then they're not available for the spring. Too many questions still. It's one of those deals that I don't know that when there's going to be answers, but I think it's a tough path. I think we'd be in favor of it. I think our players want to play. I think if they could get a full, healthy, safe season in the spring, there's no doubt all of us would be in favor of that. Punting to you.
Yeah. No, I agree.
What's your group thinking, Kevin?
Same. I think where the level of collaboration amongst the coaches has also, like Beth said, on Stanford's campus, especially with what we've gone through with losing 11 sports. It's really brought the coaches together. And I think that part I'm not worried about. We would all figure out a way to make that work. It's more of the politics of it, the NCAA, what their decision is going to be like today. And, they could very well say that because we're under 50%, that there is no championship and they just cancel it. And then the question would be, would another entity want to host the championship in the Power Five? And there's been some conversations about that. And I think, when that idea came up in the fall, our athletes were behind it and they thought it would be great, especially if we can get a reasonable season in, if it's 20 matches regular season or 18 matches regular season, and then we can play a national championship caliber tournament. Maybe it's not the NCAA tournament. I think our players can get behind that. I think the challenge is when you have what looks like the ACC was talking about with a 10-match season and those pods, and our athletes hear that and they all want a red shirt, then none of them want to play in that, and so I think, and just in general, I think it's unlikely that things change enough that we can actually host one. If we want my real opinion about that, I know that's not a popular opinion, but the way the country's going and all that, and what changes, unless we have a vaccine that's developed that fast, we're still going to be in the exact same place come February. I don't see that much changing. And so I think it's more likely that everything gets canceled, to be honest.
I think one of the things you guys need to do, though, with all your peers is absolutely make sure everybody takes out their membership in the ABCA. You talked about if you did have another championship, you would have to have the ABCA involved. The ABCA is on track to lose about $1 million here, minimum. And we can't afford, as a coaches association, to lose the membership. And you guys that are on top, especially in the Power Five, should be the ones to really take charge and try to get all of the younger coaches to understand how important it is to keep your membership up in the ABCA, keep your membership going and stay active in the association so the virtual events are well attended and so that our coaches association can lobby for us when you have issues that you really want to get forward. Both of you have been involved in the ABCA at very high levels. So I would hope you guys would take that on also, besides all the things you have to do with your teams.
I love it. Mick, you're still telling us what to do. It's awesome.
That's what Ruth said. That's what
He tells us every week too, Beth. Happens every week too. He tells us.
Absolutely.
Some things never change.
But what a great idea. I mean, thank you for saying that. And I'm sure Kevin and I will be jumping on that because you're right. We've got a lot of things that we've got to keep going. And that's an important one. The ABC is critical for us, for sure.
100%.
Thank you.
Couldn't agree more.
That's where I think our sport can really benefit and maybe kind of control some of these things. If somebody goes off campus here and starts doing their own thing, you're going to be faced with all these kinds of transfer things, situations. How many scholarships can you have if you redshirt? All of those kinds of things are going to come up, and I know you don't have answers to them right now. But if you've thought like we've talked in our group of master coaches, we've all talked about this, and Bob's actively coaching, so he knows about this. How are you going to manage all of that and all those new kids coming in? Or if you had a spring season, how about if your high school kids graduate early and come in just so they can be part of the spring season? I mean, you've got a lot of issues that come up. We need the Coaches Association to be there for us to kind of help manage and lead through some of this, as well as our conferences and Power Five and the other Division I, Division II, and Division III programs.
Couldn't agree more, Mick. Well
Okay, Mick,
said.
are you closing out tonight?
Yeah, you can. You have something else to add, Ruth?
No, I'm ready to rock and roll. You're going to talk about next week.
All right. Well, I am going to talk about next week, and next week will be a surprise for both you and us.
Yay!
We have some important dates coming up that we'll be following very closely, and the reason we haven't planned for next week yet is because August 14th, the NCAA has dictated that every Division I school must tell us who will play and who will opt out. And by knowing that, we may know that sooner. We'll find out if we're going to have a Division I championship. Division II and Division III are already out. Right now, according to my vote count last night, there were 124 schools that had decided not to play. If it gets up close to 170, supposedly by the rules, and I think, Beth, you said this, there would be a championship this year. And so that's important. We want to get to some people to tell us how this is going to work and where we're going to go from there. Besides that date, there's another date, August 21st. The Division I committee must decide if they're going to hold a championship, if that hasn't been decided by then, and we want to know about that. So we're going to try to find people that are going to talk about these things and see where our sport is looking to go here. Besides that, we'll know a little bit more about how the clubs are starting to take over in certain areas, as Ruth mentioned. So we have a big program for next week. We just can't tell you who's going to be here yet, but we'll get some people that hopefully have some answers. And if we can't, we'll just call Bob in because he's on all these committees and listening to all that. We'll have Bob tell us. So thank you. Back to you, Ruth.
Okay, for those interested in hosting a Master Coaches virtual clinic this fall, for your team or your coaches, or even an in-person clinic in 2021, please go to our Instagram, Volleyball Master Coaches, click on the bio, click the link to virtual clinics, or you may even visit our website at www.volleyballmastercoaches.com. Join us next week for Master Coaches Weekly Buzz. Follow us on Facebook at Volleyball Master Coaches, Instagram and Twitter, VB Master Coaches. All of our weekly buzz shows are on YouTube, and you can access these by going directly to our Instagram account, VB Master Coaches. Click on the link in the bio and enjoy listening to our leaders in our sport address current issues and trends. If you and your teams, Brian, I see you ready,
Okay,
are looking
I'm ready,
to be
Ruth.
safe while training utilizing a customized fitted volleyball mask, please go directly to our Instagram account, click on the link in our bio, complete the contact form, and a representative from the factory will contact you directly. And Brian, you look absolutely wonderful.
I can't, if I can say something, a friend of mine had this company's making over 500,000 masks for all the Fortune 500 companies. And I asked him, we need one for sports because the regular mask falls off. So he did this double strap mask because some of the schools, high schools and clubs are going to require masks, and this one doesn't fall down. So it's a double strap mask, and he made it, and I thought it was perfect for volleyball and other sports. So if you get a hold of us at our account, we can have them made up for you.
Oh,
and
Brian.
I know I look so good in this mask. I should have had it when I was coaching.
I know. Brian, you actually are a great model. Hey, now let's go to our host, John Foreman, who will update us on his upcoming coaching conversations and an update on return to play for the Medaille Mavericks. And John, have you ordered your custom-fitted Maverick mask? Uh-oh.
I just found out about them today, so no, haven't ordered any masks yet. But now I know. For whenever the Medaille Mavericks get back into the gym. We'll find out probably at the same time as everybody else, I'm sure. Upcoming coaching conversation next Wednesday before we do the buzz, I'm going to have a couple of guys from VLA, which is Volleyball League of America, one of the fledgling pro men's leagues, to talk about the business of men's volleyball and professional volleyball. And we'll enjoy a good conversation there. Mark Lebedew should be my co-host for that. Keep track of us on social media, Coaching Volleyball page on Facebook, where you're watching the stream if you're on Facebook, at Coaching VB on Twitter, so we can keep you updated on what ends up being the topics and or guests for next week. Until then, have a good rest of the week, everybody.
Beth,
Thanks,
Kevin?
Beth.
Thanks, John.
Kevin.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Kevin.
Kevin.
Thanks, Beth.
You guys.
All right.
All right. Go get 'em.
Bye-bye.